with the obvious exceptions of those who I see in costume, are involved in some sort of cosplay. You, I know you. So, Michelle, you don't do cosplay. All right. Welcome back. Did you get rid of her?
Yeah.
Okay. Finally, now we can talk about her since she's gone. Oh, that's Jahila, man. Good deal. See her teeth, man, they were long. No.
Come on. Oh my God. It's grumpy old man. Yes.
They were expecting the Oompa Loompas to be here today. It's very small, Mike. I guess that's a good pickup. Okay, this is our moderator, Mark Fullerton here.
Yo!
And boss on technical activities. So just a long time ago, I started doing, well, this is really feeding back. It's crazy.
Gee.
Maybe a little less volume, probably. Or maybe it could be this one. I don't know so much. I'm a voiceover guy, not knowing how a microphone works. Oh, they've got the off switch. Let's see, so
There's probably enough slack there if you want to move it back.
Yeah, okay. That should be good. There's still a ring with this.
Is it just too close to your other one?
Yeah, that's on.
Or was it too close?
Maybe.
Maybe we should spin around.
1, 2, 1, 2. Oh, that did it, yeah. I don't hear a ring
Spin
anymore.
around to the audience. If they say something, we can hear.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, cool.
There you go. You're
There you
now
go.
on.
All right. Now it's interactive. So I started dressing up as characters when I was a little kid, and I thought, well, I was doing a lot of this stuff. I was scanning a lot of these pictures from my old collection recently, and I was looking at these going, wow, I was doing all this before all these kids are doing it now. And somebody said, wow, you're the Godfather of Cosplay, ha ha ha. I'm like, hey, that's kind of cool, I'm gonna go with that. So that's how, this is my website, wallyontheweb.com, and all these characters, with the exception of the little old man with the cowboy hat, who's my dear departed grandfather, but all the other characters are me. So it's at some point in time.
Well, let's talk about this. Where did this endeavor begin, Wally?
Sioux Falls, South Dakota, 1961 I was born. By 1966, I was watching Batman with Adam West, and I wanted to cobble together my own Batman costume, and this was my 5-year-old view of my own Batman costume. I took my dad's army hat, turned it sideways for ears, my dad's work gloves, a towel safety pinned around my neck, and my pants tucked into my boots, and I was Batman. And at that age, I'm thinking, wow, I'm the coolest Batman on the block. Until my folks got me a really cool Batman costume down the lower right there for my birthday, a Batman t-shirt and a cape and a mask set, and my friend Galen Albers, who was, sorry Chris, my first Robin, who his mom threw a little yellow cape together for him. But I was spending my childhood reading Famous Monsters magazine and doing all sorts of stuff, and fell in love with monsters and tried to figure out how to not only do the costuming, but also do some makeup effects as well. Took I think that was my mom's bathing cap. When women didn't want to get their hair wet when they would swim, they would wear these latex rubber bathing caps, and it was kind of a yellowish green. I said, wow, that looks like Frankenstein's head. So I took a coffee can lid, the flat coffee can lid? They used to have coffee in big cans back then. So I took the lid off and I put it in the top of the thing, and I taped it with loops of scotch tape so it would stay in. Then I pulled it on my head and then put some Halloween hair on it, drew a little scar, and that was my Frankenstein head. All I had was to go on were photos from Famous Monsters magazine. I didn't really have any other resource materials other than that. I had no internet, no anything else. So that was about it.
All right. Well, here's a question. Not everyone can knit and sew. How did you acquire those skills?
I would con my mom into using her limited sewing skills to fabricate capes. I would find different pieces of clothing around the house that I could kind of repurpose. I bought 3 or 4 eggs of silly putty when I wanted to be an ape from Planet of the Apes. So I made a silly putty kind of ape muzzle, and I would mold it, and I'd put it on, and I'd say, Mom, take the picture really fast, because the silly putty would start to droop after a while. As you can tell, the silly putty is kind of starting to droop. But she wasn't quite fast enough on the shutter there. And I also became a fan of Barnabas Collins from a show called Dark Shadows. He had a ring, and he was had bangs that he would comb his hair into like bangs, so I was trying to replicate that as well. But I did find the ring at Kmart for about 99 cents, which seemed like $99 million to a kid at the time. But I, talked my mom into buying it for me.
Well, I think on that point, I mean, there are some people, they spend a lot of money on their costumes. Were yours relatively expensive, inexpensive? What would you say?
Less than inexpensive. It was basically stuff that I'd find in the old clothes drawer or whatever. I think the vest was, I don't even know where a lot of that came from. I had the clip-on tie because I'd wear that to Sunday school. The fangs were, 10 cents at Woolworths, and I just clipped off the bottoms, and again, they wouldn't stay in your mouth really well, unlike Giles. I didn't have the polygrip or any of that expensive stuff. I said, Mom, I'm just going to put the fangs in my mouth. And what's really funny is in this picture, I'm not even showing my fangs. Why do I want to have them in my mouth? What's the point of having it?
It's all about accuracy.
It's all about, yeah, exactly. Because if the fangs are in my, you feel like a vampire. You don't even need to show your fangs, as long as you feel like it. So, yeah, they were really, really, I mean, Barnabas Collins, one of the things he'd do in the old show. Does anybody remember Dark Shadows? Yeah. It was, the 18-year-old goes, shut up, you pipsqueak kid. No, he used to carry a wolf's head cane everywhere, a silver-headed wolf's head cane. And it was really cool. The best I could do was a twig pulled off an old tree in my grandma's orchard, where I'd go out and go, oh, that looks like a good twig, and I'd pull it off, and it had a little crook in it, and that was my cane. And I'd run around, chase girls, and try and bite them in the neck, and their brothers would beat me up. So, but it was fun nonetheless. So,
Well, on the topic of beating you up, were you ever subjected to any type of ridicule for doing that?
was I? That'll be the next panel at 5:30. How many times Wally was beaten up? That's a whole hour just in itself. Yeah, ridicule in both verbally and physically. There were guys who didn't think this was really cool and were dressing up. But the other guys were playing baseball and football with other guys. I wanted to be with the girls and chase girls.
So you're getting beat up regularly. How did you convince others to do this with you? What was the selling point?
Well, there wasn't a lot, aside from Galen Elvers, who was Robin. We were 5. We didn't get so beat up then. But as I got older, it was kind of more of a solo thing. I did con my friend Danny Wilson into being Igor one time and putting a bunch of Halloween hair on his face. But other than that, I was pretty much flying solo at this point, because it was really hard, because this is a tender age where you're starting to kind of get into 9, 10, 11, and it's not so cool anymore. You're 5 and you're safety pinning a towel around your neck, it's kind of cute. But when you're 10, 11, 12, it's like, yeah, you should be playing baseball here. And I play baseball for about a year, but I really, really, really liked this kind of stuff that I would read in monster magazines and books, and then I got obsessed with a little TV show that would run in the afternoon called Star Trek. So this really got me beat up. My mom's winter snow boots.
Wait, so Mom beat you up?
Yeah, she did actually. 'Cause when I stole her snow boots, she did. No, I had my mom's snow boots. I had some black pants that I would tuck in the boots, and God bless my folks, they were all very, very tolerant about all my dreams of doing all this kind of stuff. So I found some sort of yellow tunic that was at the local store, and I said, Mom, this would be a good Captain Kirk tunic. If you were a Star Trek fan, there was a thing called Lincoln Enterprises, where Gene Roddenberry, after Star Trek was canceled, would sell all of this stuff continually, like keychain viewers, insignias, like the chest insignia, all the stuff that you could buy that was Star Trek related through a mail order catalog. So I bought the official insignia, and I had my mom, you can see the black on the collar isn't quite stitched down so well, but she did her best. And we found some rickrack, which is this metallic kind of curvy stuff that they use for trim and sewing at the craft store. So I thought, oh, that's Captain Kirk's braid. So I would actually physically wear that costume over to my friend Blake's house, who lived across the street. We watched Star Trek from about 4:30 in the afternoon to 5:30. Then we'd play Star Trek in his basement. We had little transporter pads set up and everything with masking tape, and it was really cool. Had a little bridge that we had done, and then we'd play for about half an hour. Then I'd go home and for dinner at 6 and get my folks to pick me up. So I remember one time where I decided I wanted to be Spock. I didn't want to be Kirk. So nobody was selling pointed ears at the time, and I called the local craft store who had novelty items. I said, "Do you have pointed ears?" They said, "Well, don't have any pointed ears." I'm like, "Oh man, need pointed ears." So I made some out of cardboard, just kind of taped into my ears. I would comb my hair down to Spock bangs, and I would burn matches. And I'd take the head off after I blew them out, and then I'd make the Spock eyebrows. You know, I don't have one picture of me as Mr. Spock, unfortunately. But I was playing with Blake, Star Trek, and I came home for dinner, not realizing that we had guests for dinner. So here comes this kid walking in and full on, like, eyebrows drawn up and ears taped to his. My folks, God bless them, they're still very tolerant, even though I'm now a voice actor, and they are totally ashamed of me. But they're still very tolerant. They still love me. So.
Were there any characters you wanted to do but just couldn't for some reason, or?
Yeah, Spock. I needed those deep pointed ears. That's what I really, really needed. But you know, when you're a 5-year-old kid or 10-year-old kid, you have these little silly costumes. But in your imagination, even if you're in a cheesy Ben Cooper costume, in your imagination, I'm dressed to the nines. Now I'm cooking with gas. I thought I was Captain Kirk, and there was a thing that always, if you can see right up to the, hold on, see this right here, right there up on my head? That was a Captain Kirk curl. Remember how Shatner always used to have the one curl that would hang in his face? I said, I gotta have that. I was so detail oriented. So I would work on my hair, work on my hair, work on my hair. It was very curly, it was very tough to do. But on the days where the hair wouldn't work, I had taken a little strand of fake fur that was kind of dark brown. It was my, what we call fake Kirk curl. So I had my fake Kirk curl that I could put in my hair if I needed it. Because some days the hair just wasn't really cooperating. But anyway, so there you go.
Ever getting injuries while you were cosplaying, aside from being beaten up?
I think I probably was chasing a girl trying to bite her in the neck. It's Barnabas. I probably fell down or something. Not that I know of.
As you got older, did it get easier or more difficult?
It got easier because I was getting smarter about where to find resource materials. The next picture is Laurel and Hardy. That's me as Laurel and Hardy. We used to run Laurel and Hardy movies on our local TV station on Saturday nights at 10:30 called Laurel and Hardy Theater. Well, now here I'm about 12 or 13, and I'm starting to record them on a little tape recorder off the TV, and I'm playing them back, and I'm starting to learn how to imitate Stan Laurel. So I'm starting to study voices, and I'm like, this was the whole genesis of this. Stanley, yes, Ollie. I would learn all their routines, and this was the genesis of this whole thing. I said, well, I've got to dress up as them as well. Well, I had the little 99-cent Woolworths, a store called Woolworths, a dime store, plastic derby that would always get bent up. My sister would walk on it or step on it or something, and I'd have to buy a bunch of them. My grandfather worked at a college in Mitchell, South Dakota, and on the weekend he'd take me over there while he was doing he was a custodian. He would be cleaning up on Saturday mornings, but he gave me from the costume department at Dakota Wesleyan. It's corporate theft, but he's long gone now, so what can I do? He gave me a real bowler hat, like a real felt official bowler hat. So I'm wearing that in this, and I was so happy that I had a real Laurel and Hardy bowler hat. So things did start getting, and my eye for detail started getting better over time as well, in that I realized that Stan did have like a gray tweed, and Ollie did wear the darker colors, and he did have the tie. So I was starting to, and the blue bow tie. You started to really be keen, even though, of course, the movies were in black and white. They looked gray, they looked blue, they looked like in real life they would be a certain color. So
when you would get in the costume, would that enhance how you actually did the character?
Oh yeah, I would do a full-on physicality. Like I'd walk like Stan, and I'd the whole bit. And my friend Chris Volley, who's not pictured here, he became kind of my Ollie. I did rope him into doing some stuff, and we actually had a couple pictures of him and I together as Stan and Ollie. That actually at that point in time, because Laurel and Hardy Theater was so big on television at the time around town, people did in school think it was kind of cool that we would do Laurel and Hardy routines because we could do what they just saw on TV last Saturday night. So so it started to be kind of cool now. And what was really cool was in about 1975, this show came on called Starsky and Hutch. So I had a friend who was blonde named Steve Hatt, and we just kind of started getting called Starsky and Hutch because there was a blonde guy with blonde hair and dressed kind of like that, and there was a curly-headed, dark-haired guy named Starsky, and they were cops. They were undercover cops. And they had a really cool car, Gran Torino, that they drive around in. So Steve was already my friend, and people started calling us in school, "Hey, Starsky and Hutch." I'm like, talking to us? That's kind of cool, because I like that show. And these, now we're probably 15, we're getting to be about 14 years old here. So we're starting to kind of think about girls. Of course, I was not about girls, but we're starting to try to be really, really cool now. So we're like, hey, those guys on TV, they're really cool. They get to meet a lot of girls, and they dress cool, they talk cool. Let's be them. So I did talk my friend Steve into getting some cap guns, and my dad with his 35mm camera was always very understanding, and he always had plenty of film ready to go for any kind of moments. But as you can see, I'm starting to try and wear the Paul Michael Glaser Starsky sweater and the windbreaker, and Steve was wearing the, in the 70s you wore your collar and your shirt outside your jacket. It was really a cool thing to do. And he had the specific kind of tennis shoes that you had to have. So the tennis shoes that Paul Michael Glaser wore in Starsky and Hutch that took the world by storm, everybody had to have these, were Adidas. Well, Adidas at the time, even at the time, were $29 shoes, which is now like $59 shoes. Well, I couldn't afford that on a paper route salary. So I went down to JCPenney and I bought the knockoffs for $10, which were pretty nice, but they wouldn't last very long. But they still looked exactly the same. So I would just have to source this stuff out. But luckily, Starsky and Hutch, their costumes weren't too extravagant. You could pretty much find that style of clothes readily available on any store rack. And of course, when Paul Michael Glaser debuted with that cool sweater, then everybody started kind of making those sweaters, and they were kind of easy to find. So.
Doing this early cosplay and becoming an actor, did doing cosplay have any influence on your acting skills, your willingness to act, your possible hesitations to acting?
Well, Andy Kaufman always said that acting doesn't only have to be on a stage or in front of a camera. It can be what he called theater of life. He would dress up as a minister and go preach Jesus, the Jewish guy preaching Jesus, on a street corner, but doing a character, and people would walk by think he's a real minister. But he was doing theater of life. And Tony Clifton, he would dress up and stay dressed as the lounge singer Tony Clifton for a week, and just do theater of life. There was no cameras around, there wasn't anything else going on. Oh, it's Mom saying, "Stop talking about me." Okay. Sorry, Mom. So this was kind of like theater of life, because Steve and I would take our friend Barry Johnson out with my camera and my dad's camera, and we'd say, let's get some gritty street photos like Starsky and Hutch. Let's sit on a dumpster. That makes us look. Why we thought sitting on a dumpster made us look like undercover cops, I have no clue. Oh, what do we know? We're 14. So yeah, it all started to kind of complement each other, Because when I was dressing up as Batman at the age of 5, I didn't really talk like Adam West or move like him. I just wanted to kind of feel like I would look like him. But years later, as we start doing, Frankenstein, you're taking on the Frankenstein qualities and the Laurel and Hardy physicality and all that stuff. Now it started to kind of mesh.
Were you ever intimidated if you had a circumstance where you were cosplaying someone who had actually portrayed the character?
Well, not until later. When I got into Los Angeles, I started meeting like Adam West and some of these people. The next one is kind of interesting. This is the first character I cosplayed where it was actually now becoming an official performance. Where I was actually on stage doing material and performing for a group of 1,500 people, 1,200 people at the high school talent show. Somebody had said, "Hey, you look like that Andy Kaufman guy who's on TV." And I said, "Oh yeah, I think he's funny." So that's my mom right there. I was getting ready for the talent show because I had all of Andy's routines memorized, and I had a whole thing. I was gonna.
Hello, I want to do for you some imitations. I want to imitate for you John Wayne. Hey, Pilgrim, you better watch out what you say or you're going to be dead where you sit. Move them out. Thank you very much.
So that became my talent show act. And that I actually did send a picture of me, that center picture, to Andy, care of NBC. And I did get a really nice letter back from him saying, and a signed picture saying, it's great that you're doing this at such a young age and developing your act so early, and thank you. And he was explaining all about some other characters that he wants to do. He's still going to do Elvis and all the other stuff. So that was kind of an amazing day when I got that letter, because that was that made it official. That was validation.
Did he respond to a lot of people when they wrote to him, or no?
Well, Lynn Margulies, who was his girlfriend, who became a friend of mine years later, said that, oh, you don't have any idea how rare getting a letter from Andy was when you were a guy. He would write to you if you were a girl. And try and hook up a meeting at one of his college shows. Hey, you gonna be in the area? Come see you. But he would never write to a guy. So she said he must have been really, really impressed by something, because he wrote you a whole full page letter. And then I realized later, reading a book about Andy, why he probably did that. Because when he was a kid, he dressed up as Elvis and sent a picture of himself as Elvis to Elvis. So he probably was like, wow, now this kid's sending a picture to me of doing me. So it probably was full circle for him. So it was kind of an interesting, that's just me thinking. But if you look at the date that he sent it, August 15th, 1977, that's one day before Elvis Presley died. Yeah, and in the book, the Bill Zemi book about Andy Kaufman, he said that Andy was going to do a bunch of shows that week. So he said he had a bunch of stuff to do before he left town, and he was actually on the road when he found out that Elvis had died, and of course he took it really hard. He was a huge Elvis fan like myself. But the letter to me was that something, one of the last things I do before I go out of town. So I was on his errand list for the day, mailing my letter, which I thought was really cool after reading that. So I thought that's pretty neat. So, but then it became kind of official. And then everybody said, well, you do Andy, you have to do Elvis now. I'm like, well, I guess I do. So I got, there was a company that did jeans called Sedgefield. So I found some white Sedgefield jeans, a white denim jean jacket, and had the neighbor lady, who was a seamstress, put the big collar on, and I put every one of those studs on myself. I made the belt, Mom stitched that together with the chains, the whole thing. So I had, at the time I was working at a radio station as a radio DJ, and every check that I would get, I'd run down to Woolworths and buy whatever metallic studs and rhinestones they had, and I'd buy them out. And then the next week I'd get my other paycheck and I'd go and buy whatever they had come in. So it was a constant year-long process to get this thing made. This costume actually is in my high school alumni museum back in Aberdeen, South Dakota, on a mannequin, which is kind of funny.
He's in the Hall of Fame there.
Yeah, the Hall of Infamy. But
now that guy on the right, on the frame on the right side, he looks like he's having as much fun as you.
Well, that's Robert Japp Sr. His son Bob Japps has been a friend of mine since about 5th grade, and Bob actually played trombone in my Elvis band. So everybody knew that we were working on an Elvis thing, but we didn't, and I didn't have to sign them to NDAs or anything. We just kept it real quiet what was going on. They just knew that there were 10 people in the band and I was going to do Elvis. Elvis had just died about 6 months before we did this. We were going to do an Elvis act before he died where it was just goofing on him. Wiggling around, all that kind of stuff. And then after he died, we're like, we can't do that. We can't make fun of the king of rock and roll. We have to do a serious tribute. So that's what it was. It was a 15-minute serious tribute, but nobody expected some high school kid in Aberdeen to come out in a full-on, jumpsuit with a thing. Now, the thing about this suit that was interesting was it was a two-piece, and it snapped together. I didn't have a whole jumpsuit made because that would have been expensive. But it was a two-piece thing that snapped together, and the belt went over it. But when Andy Kaufman saw the picture of me in my two-piece suit, he said, well, that's a great Elvis suit, in the letter. Where'd you get such a great Elvis suit? His first Elvis suit was a long black jumpsuit, but his second suit was a two-piece. And I'm thinking, did I have anything to do with his decision to make it two-piece? Because he would come out with the white pants, put the jacket on, he'd take the jacket off, and then put the Elvis jacket on, and then it all matched, and he'd take the things off the side. So I'm like, I wonder if I had anything to do with him deciding to go with a two-piece suit.
Bringing it full circle, whatever happened to that black Elvis jumpsuit that Andy had?
Oh, I've got it. It's in my collection. It crossed my path about 8 years ago. I said, name your price. I had to have it. It's Andy's first of his 3 jumpsuits. First one I have, second one his brother has. The third one was sold, which was powder blue, sold at a yard sale by his assistant Linda after passed away for about 20 bucks.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
Dope. Yeah. Nobody knew what the value of that stuff was going to be back then. They just, let it go. So that was our Elvis thing. So I continued doing that for a while, but that was not just kind of walking around Elvis. That was actually full-on performing with a 10-piece band orchestra. And we do C.C. Ryder and Hound Dog and all the stuff. So it was a lot of fun. But then everybody started doing Elvis and it wasn't fun anymore. So then in 1980, when I was a radio DJ, I got to interview this guy,
Yeah.
Batman Adam West, at a car show in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, May 1st, 1980. And I was really kind of inspecting close up his costume, thinking, boy, I'd like to make one of those someday. And this particular costume wasn't necessarily good.
Are you talking about the one on the right or the left?
The one on the left actually looks pretty cool. The explanation for the one, do you want to know why he was dressed like that? The airline, he had a 3-day appearance, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. The airline lost his luggage. He would always carry on the cowl, but the rest of the costume, the cape and everything, was in his checked luggage. Well, they lost his luggage, so he had to appear. All he had was the cowl, so he had his sheepskin jacket on, his velour shirt, and his cowl, and I thought that's just wacky. So I said, this is really, and of course he was so great that he was, Sioux Falls, Chris, because Chris is from Sioux Falls. He's just so dry in his delivery, and he would stand up there. Alfred has helped me pack my thermal jacket, my bat jacket, and so he tried to play it off as like Alfred planned this, because he knew it was cold in South Dakota. But his costume did show up the next day, and then I went back to the car show wearing pretty much the same clothes I had on the night before, apparently. I would sleep at the radio station and not really change or shower. It was pretty disgusting. But at this point, then we became friends. But I tried to go by memory of what I saw that costume is, because I saw him remove the cowl, I saw him take the cape off, and I'm trying to think, wow, I want to make one of those. So it took me about a year. This was my internet. This is a picture that I took with my camera. You can see the reflection of the lamp in our living room in the back. There was one HBO show that flashed up a still of Adam West as Batman. And this was my resource material. This was my internet. This is what I made my bat costume off of. Well, look how it sits on the shoulders and it unsnaps, and there's his belt and da-da-da-da-da. But I didn't have any sizes. I didn't have any other fans to compare it with. I just went basically on this and my memory of what I saw Adam wear and the little Viewmasters, the Batman Viewmasters. So I'm like looking at the Viewmasters, trying to draw what I want to do. Look at the Viewmaster. There was no internet. There was none of this at the time. So that was my main source of inspiration to come up with this costume, which I got my grandma to kind of throw together. I got some rubber English riding boots and covered them with satin and made a utility belt, and I got a scuba hood, like a neoprene scuba hood, and covered it with some fabric and made ears, and that was my Batman costume. So a year later, after Adam's World of Wheels, I show up at 1981's World of Wheels. This is my first kind of convention cosplay that I ever did in front of a lot of people, where I not only didn't get beat up, but actually got quite a bit of accolades.
Had you ever heard of anyone dressing like Adam West, Batman, ever?
Never.
Yeah.
No. Adam West was kind of a joke back then. It was sad because he was everything to me, but I would hear people muttering as he'd walk by, oh, there's Adam West. I'm like, why are they laughing? That's Adam West. So when I showed up, because only the Batmobile was there, Adam wasn't there that year. So when I showed up in that costume, people went crazy, because you can see all the people gathered around the back. Oh, Batman's with the Batmobile, Batman's with the Batmobile. So I said, oh, can I get a picture standing by the Batmobile? And the guy who had it said, yeah, come on in. He lifts up the velvet rope. I'm like, you mean go in? Yeah, come on in. Here, you want to get in? Do I want to get in the Batmobile? All of a sudden, I was 5 years old again, wishing I had my dad's hat turned to the side. So I was like, wow, this is great. And the first thing I noticed about going into the Batmobile was how small the cockpit was. And I banged my knee on the door jamb. I was like, ow. But I got several pictures. People were gathered around, snap, 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 snap. It's like, wow, this is weird. I'd never seen anything like this before. We didn't have comic book conventions or any of that stuff like this back in the day. This was the first public appearance of this kind of thing, but apparently everybody there was kind of okay with it, so they got pictures, and it was kind of fun. So then I started doing, taking the costume course. Like I said, we didn't have conventions, so we kind of had to, who's that guy? We had to kind of make our own venues for doing this kind of thing. We do a lot of children's charities. Now that guy in the Robin costume was my friend Chris right down here, who was my second Robin after Galen Albers. But Chris came to interview me at the radio station I was working at as a DJ and said, hey, my teacher said you're a big Batman fan. I'm like, yeah. I said, hey, you kind of look like Burt Ward a little bit. Hey, you want to go to some hospitals, visit some kids? You want to get a Robin costume? Hey, yeah, sure. I'm like, okay. He walks off and I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll never hear from him again. He shows up a week later with a full-on Robin costume. Your mom or your stepmom had made that, right?
Yeah.
Put that together. So this was we didn't have any conventions to go to, but we had to create our own venues for this sort of thing. So we'd walk around the shopping malls and see kids and go to hospitals and do telethons. That's a thing there on the left. We were doing, what was it? It wasn't the MDA telethon, it was the
Teddy Bear's Picnic, or the Teddy Bear...
We did the Teddy Bear Picnic too, but it was...
Oh, yeah.
Something... MS. It was one of the telethons. Anyway,
Yeah.
The guy in the middle there was one of the radio DJs I worked with, and he said, hey, dress up as Batman and Robin, come down and put you on the phones, you can talk to people who make pledges. Oh, yeah, that's cool. So it was pretty fun. And then Chris got us an article in the school paper, and there's the Teddy Bear Picnic. So this was what we were doing back in, what was it, 1984? Was that say 83?
It's either 85 or 86. Yeah.
Oh, 86, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Chris Mulvey and Keller radio personality. So, and there's a little kid there. Was that Halloween with the kid in the cowboy hat, or did they just dress like that in South Dakota?
I think it was... I think it was getting close to Halloween.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, Robin in South Dakota all the time.
Yeah. So we judge costume contests, do whatever we could do to kind of get our thing going, It was fun. Oh, and then, of course, Batman led into my Superman costume, because the Christopher Reeve Superman was real hot, and we found out that Spider-Man was going to be appearing at one of the stores, signing autographs, selling toys. We're like, oh, we got to put on our costumes and go down there. Well, we didn't think Marvel, DC, they had a problem with each other. So I get my friend Tom Simmons to put on the Superman suit, I put on the Batman suit, and we want to go get a photo op with Spider-Man, a fellow crime fighter. So we walk in, and the management was like, what the hell are they doing here? And we're completely in character. And so they pull us to the side, the guy goes, what are you doing here? And I stayed in character and said, we came to welcome our friend Spider-Man and fellow crime fighter to Sioux Falls, hoping we could get a picture together. Okay, get your picture and get out of here. Tom, the guy who did the Superman suit, we still laugh about that today, because they did not want to see competing, guys. It was
Universes
hilarious.
colliding.
Yeah.
You mentioned Chris at the time that was popular, but yours, you didn't do stuff based on popularity. You did it because it was something you had a great reverence for.
Yeah. Just if I loved it, I would try and replicate it.
Just
I wouldn't
jump on
try and
the
replicate anything I wasn't normally into myself.
Yeah.
But again, just finding yellow vinyl and red fabric and trying to find a seamstress. I think one of the gals who was the seamstress at the community playhouse threw that together for me, and I still have it to this day. And I do, there's my daughter Lacey on the right, going up for Halloween. And of course, Superman loves the ladies, so he's there with the ladies in the middle doing the telethon thing at the local mall, so it's a lot of fun. And so then I decided what I really wanted to be was Darth Vader. So the one off to the right was the early Darth Vader, where I basically took a tape recorder and pasted it on my chest. I didn't have any reference for any of the box. Of course, we had some Star Wars calendars and a couple other things, but I really couldn't figure out how that box was made. And then I made the cod piece, the cape I borrowed, the helmet belonged to a friend of mine, so I made the boot chaps and things. But I'm walking around thinking, I'm Darth Vader, this is really cool. And then the suit got better over time. The picture's off to the left. You see where the box actually more closely resembled the real box. And I had one of the engineers at the radio station rig up some Christmas lights with 9-volt batteries so they would actually blink on the thing, and I thought, wow, this is really great. Then I found these two, you just have to source the stuff, you had to source the stuff wherever you could find it. there was a Dr. Doom voice amplifier thing that you could get. It was a head of Dr. Doom about that big. It had a 9-volt battery in it with a mic plug, and it had a little cheesy mic. And it showed a kid on a bicycle with Dr. Doom on the front of his bike. He has the thing on. He's like, get out of my way! You know, like, get out of my way! Because it would amplify your voice. I bought 2 of those and had them hidden under my belt, and the microphones were inside and running down the inside of my cloak. So I could walk around and
Don't talk like Darth Vader. Get out of my way.
so that was kind of fun. So people could actually hear me, my voice coming actually through the belt there.
How did the kids react? Because at that age, Darth Vader was kind of scary.
No, they all loved him.
They did?
By now it was Return of the Jedi, so
Oh,
he was big news.
Or lovable Vader.
Exactly.
Kinder, gentler.
Then I got into Muppets and started making my own Muppets, and luckily I was able to find most of the fabrics. It's called Royal Fleece, which is very difficult to find. But I started learning how to craft out of foam rubber and how to glue. I had turned my bedroom downstairs in the basement into like a Muppet workshop. That's my Kermit that I'd started working on. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out and perform as you know, these Muppet characters, because I would like to be a Muppeteer someday. I can do all the voices, I can do the style of puppet making, I can do their thing. So I did a United Cerebral Palsy telethon. I
Took a
could
break
go out
from
to
singing with ELO.
What's that?
Took a break from singing with ELO.
Yeah, right. I do look like Jeff Lindner. So I take Kermit to like a movie theater. They run the Great Muppet Caper. I go talk to kids, and you can see the kids, you know, really kind of loved it, and it was a lot of fun. And then I said, oh, I'm going to make a videotape of my puppet work and send it to Henson. So my mom and I constructed all those puppets, and probably I think 22 or 23 puppets. And I still have 4 or 5 of those to this day. So I sent this picture as like a thing, hey, look, I can do your style of puppets, and I'm performing at malls, and I go to hospitals, talk to kids. Well, I get this letter from Henson Associates, they're gonna hire me. I'm 19 years old, or 21 at the time, what did I know? About copyright infringement. So, so I'm like, well, what the heck is this? Well, don't ever take the puppets out of the house anymore, or you'll be sued. What? What are you doing? But I want a job with you guys. Why are you trying to sue me? I'm not threatened. So that was a buzzkill right there to all future puppet endeavors.
So your sizzle reel led to a cease and desist letter.
Which I think was...
Hello, Hollywood.
Yeah, well, it must have been a great sizzle reel if they were threatened by it. Otherwise, like, this kid's nuts, just ignore him. But if they were that threatened by it, because I go to hospitals and visit kids and do all sorts of things. Now, here's an interesting one. I really started to be, this is very timely right now. This is this is my Michael Myers on the left. There was no Michael Myers masks out there. Now they're sold out at Spirit and all the Halloween stores. So I took like a plastic, looked like a safety test dummy, and I put my own hair on it, and I kind of constructed it, based it on a picture of Michael Myers from a newspaper. That was all I had. And I would walk around and I would do Michael Myers. This is before any of these masks had come out. And I kind of painted it kind of whitish, and I had, you know, the lips and everything. So I would do Michael Myers. Then I got into Leatherface, then I started doing Boy George, which really got me beat up.
Ironically asking, do you really want to hurt me?
Do you really want to hurt me? Yes. So that was, but I was starting to get clever, a little more clever with the costuming. The Leatherface apron is actual pig's blood on an apron where I was, I wanted it to look like it really had, because I was really into detail, like actual splatter. So I hung I was in a basement apartment at the time, I had hung the apron up on the ceiling with thumbtacks, and I got some pig's blood from the butcher shop from the grocery store. And I was with rubber gloves like doing that, trying to get the blood stain, so it would run down and look like it was really, you know, didn't want to do it this way because it wouldn't have that natural run. So I was leaving the apartment to go to another apartment, so there were people that came by to see the apartment in case they wanted to take it after I left. So they opened up, they wanted, the door opens up, here's this guy splattering blood on the apron. Yeah, we'll think about it and get back to you.
There goes your security deposit.
Yeah, exactly. So the age of MTV had made me want to do the Weird Al thing. So, and there's me and Al at backstage at his concert in Minneapolis at Valley Fair. He signed that picture to me, Wally, stop looking like me, which was kind of funny. And there he is, looking at a picture of me actually doing him with a crazy look on his face. And then he sent me a really nice letter about all the pictures I had sent. So I've known him since probably 85 or 86. He's a great guy. and a recent recipient of the Star of the Walk of Fame. So really cool. And then we started a Rocky Horror Cast. They're locally in Sioux Falls. This really got me beat up. But it was fun. And we had a lot of local community theater people, and nobody had ever heard of like the shadow cast thing before. Now it's commonplace. But we would act out the movie, and all that stuff had to be created by an actual seamstress. I made the shoes. I found some shoes like that at the Goodwill, and then I glued on the rest of the stuff. But and then I decided right around 1986 to move to Los Angeles, and after I did.
Did you ever have any concerns about perceptions that might have left with people, or for you, was this just a type of acting?
Well, to me it was a type of acting, but the perceptions from some of the people that lived in the community at the time, they didn't see it as acting. They thought it was just plain weird and troublesome. And it was, a lot of questions were being thrown back and forth, and I'm like, really, what part of my 5-month pregnant wife do you have a problem with? This is a joke.
Yeah.
This is a joke. It's like community playhouse. So then I moved to Los Angeles. There's Chris again on the left. He flew out, and we appeared at a thing with Adam and Bert back in 1987. That was the first year I lived here. And then we also got to meet Bob Kane, the creator of Batman, put our costumes on and posed for some pictures with Bob on the roof of his condo in West Hollywood. No, he was in Hollywood, yeah. So that was pretty cool. So there's Jan Kemp, the creator of the Batman costumes, who I got to become friends with, him and his wife Marjorie. And Jan, with his guidance, helped me make a much better quality Batman costume by giving me the secrets about how he did the original costumes, about the hard shell underneath and the size of the buckle on the bat belt and the whole thing. So I miss them both terribly. They're very nice people. And then I went back in '88 to do a thing called a zoo coup. They had just gotten this great penguin exhibit at the Sioux Falls Great Plains Zoo. And I said, wouldn't it be funny, because this is '88, so that's 1 year away from the Tim Burton movie, so Batman Mania was starting to happen again. So I said, hey, so they were running the Batman TV series in Sioux Falls. So I said, wouldn't it be funny if we took a bunch of superheroes and we did a thing at the zoo, like for muscular dystrophy, and we had all the heroes, and we had like the penguin come and try and steal the penguin exhibit. So I called every friend of mine from the community playhouse days and said, can you make a penguin nose? Do you want to be the penguin? Do you want to be the Joker? Hey, let's get some superhero costumes. So Chris had his, of course, his Robin costume. My friend Dave had his Spider-Man suit.
That's not the guy from the store earlier?
From the what?
The Spider-Man from the store?
Oh, that's not the same guy, no. No, that's not the hating Spider-Man. This is the loving Spider-Man. So we went to visit kids in the hospital, had the Green Hornet, Wonder Woman. I roped my sister into being Wonder Woman. Of course, Tom is Superman again, so we went to visit kids in the hospital. Then we had a big muscular dystrophy fundraiser that day at the Great Plains Zoo, which was a lot of fun. And we made some money. And then, years later, I got to actually appear with a bunch of people who really knew what to do with their costumes. And there's Adam West, Frank Gorshin, and Burke Ward. And there's that was the last time I'd ever cosplayed as Batman, which I think was about 2004. And I said, you know what, if I'm gonna retire, this is a pretty good way to retire, because it don't get much better than this. So then I handed it off to other kids who had fun playing, and it was time to let them have a turn.
What would cause you to think about hanging it up at that time?
My weight. No, I was done.
Yeah.
I've done pretty much everything I thought, and there was other people who were starting to get interested in doing that, and I'm like, you know what, I don't want to be the only guy doing this, let's open it up to
Do
everybody.
you think had you continued to do it, you might not have done it as well, or somehow it might have gone out?
I just kind of lost interest,
Yeah.
And, the Jan Kemp was so kind about giving me a lot of the tips on the costumes that I shared them with a lot of people, so other guys were starting to make decent looking costumes as well, and I said, yeah, you know what, you be Batman for a while, let's share the wealth. I got a rubber Freddy mask and became Freddy one Halloween, and made a little demo tape through a friend of mine who knew that somebody in New York who ran a 1-800-1900 Freddy line, like a phone call line, was going to do a TV commercial, and they needed a Freddy. So I put the rubber mask on, I sewed Velcro into the back so it fit really tight, and they said, hey, you got the job, fly to New York with David Miller, who created the Freddy makeup. And he put the actual official Robert Englund foam latex on me, and dressed me up, and we did the TV commercial back in 2 commercials in '89 and '90. So the cosplay does actually come back around to kind of benefiting your professional career later. which is kind of cool. I love that full circle where, you know, nobody's ever hired me to be Michael Myers, but hey, you know, Batman, the Freddy, that's pretty cool. Oh, I did get hired on the Eat Your Hollywood Story as Andy Kaufman, so that was pretty neat too. So, oh, speaking of which, there's me as Andy in the Eat Your Hollywood Story, which was a lot of fun. And I've come to find out his girlfriend Lynn Margulies was working on Man on the Moon, and they said, "Hey, you know Lynn Margulies?" And I said, "I've never met her, but I know who she is." "Well, she knows you." I said, "Well, how's she know me?" She said, "Who's playing Andy in your documentary?" I said, "Well, this guy we got named Wally, he looks like Andy Kaufman." She said, "Oh, is it Wally Wingert?" They're like, "Yeah, how do you know?" She's like, "Oh, all of his pictures that he sent to Andy are in Andy's belongings. When Andy passed away, he had a big trunk of belongings that he left Lynn with, and my pictures that I'd sent him when I was 16 were still in his thing." It was pretty kind of amazing. So, there we go. Also got to be Tony Clifton. There's me and Lynn right there at the Man on the Moon premiere. I dressed up as Andy and just kind of wandered around on Hollywood Boulevard as everybody was across the street with Jim Carrey and other people, and I just kind of walked around. And Jim Carrey, you can see him when he's interviewed on the red carpet. They said, "Hey, Andy, I think is across the street." Jim looks over and goes, "Yeah, might be him, might be him. You never know with Andy." So that was kind of a fun night. And then I got to a better cosplay costume. There's me at San Diego Comic-Con, and then Bob Zamuda, who took over the Clifton character from Andy Kaufman, yeah, we had become friends, and he says, I'm going to try and relaunch the character, so, you know, if you're out there and I'm doing it and you're doing it, it's kind of confusing, so can you not do it anymore? I'm like, "It's your character, I won't do it anymore." So I never did it again. I just hung up the tux and was happy to do it and move on.
But he does live at Planet Wallywood?
Clifton, yeah, some form of Tony Clifton does live at Planet Wallywood, but it's not him wearing the official Clifton outfit, but it's a very close facsimile. So, and then full circle, Star Trek years later. I got a really deluxe Star Trek costume, not the little rickrack and all the other stuff, but this is all the official braid that you can buy. And I went to the Star Trek experience and got to jump through the timekeeper and
The Guardian.
the Guardian, yeah. And it's funny because Dorothy Fontana, who wrote this episode, is it City on the Edge of Forever?
And that's
Yeah, where he goes, yeah, he meets Joan Collins, yeah. She said that she, in the script, said, it's a big round stone thing with runes, surrounded by runes, like, you know, runes like jewels. And she comes in on Monday, and the set guys had finished, and it was all like these ruins, like everything had been blown up. So what is this? Well, it said ruins. No, runes, not ruins. Well, it is what it is. We got to shoot it now, so it's pretty funny. Which added kind of a cool aspect to the story. It's like, what happened here? You know, why is the Guardian the only one still standing? So anyway. Man, this is really cool. This is this is me with the entire living cast at the time of Star Trek, with the exception of DeForest Kelley, who had passed away at an event in 2006 or 7, I believe. But my friend Scott Sebring had put the little young me like in the group because I felt like I was that, even though I was that. So it was. So dreams do come true if you just stick to your cosplay and make it happen. And then there's did Austin Powers, and I got to do Marilyn Manson's birthday party, and I was a Lon Chaney fan, so I got to dress up as the man in the beaver hat. This is all later on in early to mid 2000s when I was doing this, where you know, now I have dispendable income to really have a custom wig made out of yak hair, and I can get a hat fabricated from a hat place. And this is no longer, you know, this, where I'm just trying to find a ring at Woolworths for 89 cents. I now can get the, you know, $99 ring with the wolf's head cane, and so it all comes full circle. So no matter how humble your beginnings may seem, there's David Selby, he played Quentin in the show. Kathleen Scott played Maggie. So it all eventually comes full circle, or you know, eventually you just wait.
So at this point, you're a voice actor at this point, correct?
Oh yeah. No, I'd been a voice actor since well, we got into about 1997, and this was in the mid 2000s.
You're essentially a working actor who's still cosplaying.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Well, yeah, but it was really funny. Is years later, I got to actually do a session with David Selby, and where he and I have a scene together. It's one of the Dark Shadows radio plays, and I'm skipping out inside, and I'm like, oh my God, you're with David Selby. But I have to be, no, I'm cool. I'm an actor. He's an actor. And we got it right on the first take. It's like, oh, that's good. We're moving on. I'm like, crap. Man, can't we do it a couple more times? No, it's good. We're moving on. So that was great. Then I did Scarecrow Romney Marsh, and then now, as you can see, my buddy Scott is doing Captain Kirk now, and his wife Vicky, and then my buddy Dave, who was in the Spider-Man outfit earlier, is doing a character called Bat Bum that he had come up with. Will crime fight for food? And this was the last cosplay I think I'd pretty much ever done, about 2008, as the Scarecrow of Romney Marsh, because I was just getting kind of tired of it, and I'd done it, and there was really nothing else left to do. So. And then Starsky and Hutch, finally got to meet David Soul, Paul Michael Glazer. I got to hang out with Paul. He drove my car, of course. And there's my friend Steve Hatt. Remember the Steve in my folks' basement with the cap guns? That's him with the leather jacket. I said, dude, I'm flying you out. We're going to hang out with Paul and David all weekend. So you can look at me and you look at him, and we're both 13-year-old girls on the inside going, hee. It's pretty great. So. And then I finally did find a really great Kermit the Frog replica made off the pattern. So we went to the Screwball Center recently with Kermit, and walked around and did some stuff, and they can sue me if they want to. I don't really care.
Amazing YouTube video you can see.
Yeah. So, and then that's it. So that's my story.
Why did you ultimately retire? I mean, you had the ability, you got these skills.
Well, you just at some point you just get sick of doing the makeup and dressing up, and I wanted to keep a beard, and I didn't want to keep shaving and everything. And there was a point where somebody had said, "Well, you're Wally Wingert, the voice actor. If producers are at the conventions and they see you dressed up, they go, why is Wally Wingert dressed up in tights? Dressed up as Batman? He's not Batman." They don't get that. So it became the kind of thing where I didn't have a problem with it, but unless you're completely covered and they don't know who you are, it's probably not advisable to be at a certain point in your career to where other people look at you, because they might make judgments and cast aspersions on that, even though you're just having fun. But now, again, it's come full circle again, like Tara Strong and Greta Lyle. They're Catwoman, they're the voice of Catwoman and Harley, and they'll dress up in cosplay costumes as those characters and join in on the fun, and I think that helps to add to the fun as opposed to detract from it. So maybe I'll...
Well, closing the loop, since full circle is the overarching theme here, have you encountered anyone essentially cosplaying you in some form?
Well, yes, they have, well, not me, but the characters that I have voiced. There's a bunch of really great Arkham Riddlers that have been out there. And then I got at the Warner Horror Made Here event at the Warner Brothers lot, they have a kid, named Chris playing the Riddler, and he looks like the Riddler from the game, and I'm like, oh my gosh, it's the Riddler from the game. And when he came out, the night I was there, he was trying to do my voice. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I'm like, wow, that guy's trying to sound like me. This is really cool. So I was kind of taken by that. That was pretty cool, and he's a nice guy, and we've been in touch. So yeah, so it's full circle, like you said.
Nice. We probably have about a minute left. Does anyone have a question for Wally before we close it out? Oh, in the back, yes, sir.
Did you ever imagine people would ever become professional cosplayers as a profession?
Never. I'd say, why would people want to do this and get beat up? I had no idea that this was going to someday be a celebrated art form. I was always dreaming, well, someday somebody's going to understand this. That's why I still love going to these conventions and seeing, Klingons and seeing people dressed up as, Scrooge McDuck and people dressed up as Boba Fett. And what I really, really love more than anything is the mashups. Where, well, I'm Elvis, but I'm a stormtrooper Elvis. I love all the mashups. I never thought about that at all. Well, maybe Darth Vader with like a Frankenfurter. Oh, we did want to do a mashup, but as a joke called Bat and Furter. 1 minute? 1 minute? Okay. Where it's like half Batman, half Frankenfurter, where the utility belt is actually the garter belt, which would be kind of fun. So anyway, but never in a million years. But boy, I'm sure glad to see it, because now all the kids are having fun and nobody gets hurt. So
fantastic.
That's what it's all about.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, Wally Wingert.
Thank you.
Congratulations, my boss, Adams.
More fun.
Thanks for coming, everyone.